Do you want to open it and I'll just push the camera to the thing to you?
You're all set.
Okay.
All right, are we all set?
Yep.
All right, I'm Kristen Bishop right now. So good evening, welcome to the working session. We're going to go ahead and start. We're having some technical difficulties, so hopefully we'll all be on our individual laptops. To begin with, let me grab my agenda.
Here.
Need to do the Pledge of Allegiance. All right, so we're going to do the Pledge of Allegiance. We'll keep it on my mic, so I'll just do it, and then y'all can do it on your own. So if everyone would stand and do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. We're going to call this meeting to order. If we can all recite the mission statement, please. To inspire the passion for lifelong learning, one student at a time. Very nice. We're going to go through the roll call.
Yep, I'm here.
Great.
Joanne Degler,
Here.
Eugene Steger,
Here.
Stacy Barno,
Here.
Robert Rainier,
Here.
Kristen Smith,
Here.
Michelle McCrae,
Here.
Deji Akintoy,
Here.
Colleen Preston,
Here.
and Brian Ladman.
That was a here.
That was it here. Yep.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. It's a full house. This is great. Thank you, everybody. Brian, public comments. Do we have any for the working session?
No, not for the working session.
Okay. So we're going to go ahead and move on. So we're going to go to head of school. I'm going to turn over you and I'm going to see if my computer's working.
Okay. Brian, you want to share it? Yeah. Okay. Next slide. To inspire passion for lifelong learning, one student at a time. Forward together, work session. All right, so the first thing we're going to talk about is our educational employee shortage right now. So those of you that are in the educational field, you're hearing it throughout the school districts. Most of the school districts are looking at their contracts and making addendums because there is a substitute teacher shortage, and everybody's struggling. So they're all upping the ante so that people come and sub at their school. We also recognize that this isn't something you kind of just walk into and can do, that we would like to train as many people as possible so that they understand how we are doing it and what our regulations around hybrid learning is. So currently right now we have 7 long-term building substitutes that are contracted through STS. 2 of them are full-time building subs. We need 1 more. 5 teacher positions are being covered with long-term subs, 2 of which are vacancies that we think we could continue to have as long-term subs. 3 open positions we're trying to interview for and fill. So we have a middle school social studies. You'll hear some of these things tonight at the board meeting, a middle school music teacher and a high school student service coordinator that we're trying to fill right now. The other 2 we are going to keep with the building subs. If we don't fill them, then we have 2 building subs, but then we'll have no building subs at all if we fill them with those 2. We have administrators covering. I know Unionville High School, they had administrators covering. I mean, I told Donna and myself and Tasha, we're all going to be in classroom soon if we can't figure out how to do this. So there are a lot of school districts that are in this position, and people that have been trying to find positions that are closer to home are now finding them, and that's why they're leaving. We've had teachers here that have been here for over 10 years that have said, have been waiting to be in my home school district, drive an hour and a half here, and now I got a job and I'm sorry to leave you like this. So this is where we are. So we did negotiate the contract. Donna actually called. Donna, did you want to say anything about the contract addendum? Oh, yeah, hold on. Go ahead.
Okay. So we reviewed our current contract with STS, and we found that our building rate sub for long-term subs was much lower than what our surrounding districts were. So we upped that slightly so that we could be more competitive. We did not add any subs or any additional positions. We'll need board approval for that. But we're doing what we can to work with STS to get the positions filled based on what pool they have. And we'll be looking to add some additional ones once we get more definitive numbers.
And I think it's important to point out that this isn't an exodus of our visiting teachers. This is when we're having teachers take a normal day off of school, not having the what we've had in the past, the historical daily subs or building subs available to step in, is where we're having to go in and start to cover.
So, Brian, did you hear Donna?
Yep, we could hear her.
Okay. So there are 9 classroom aide open positions. And the reason why we have so many classroom aide positions open is because a lot of the moms that were filling those roles are staying home with their kids, and they're not willing to find childcare and still make the little money that classroom aide positions offer. So that is an issue. And then we have 4 personal care assistants, which are with our special education population, and they're contacted through GHR. So those contract positions are also having a hard time finding people because of their home situation. So, and then we had 1 emotional support assistant. So there's a ton of positions that are crucial to our functioning. So you'll see a lot of principals and administrators covering lunches and recess and guidance counselors making this work. But we're really looking for people to spread the word. That flyer was just made so that we could blast our social media. So that's something that we've offered that has worked, is that we are allowing employees to bring their children here 4 days versus the 2 days. Now, obviously it can't go over the hybrid number, but that's worked because then they didn't have to find childcare. So that's something that we've worked on, along with obviously raising the rate. So that's where we are. I know we talked about it at the finance meeting, and Rob just asked what the positions are. Now, a lot of these positions are already in the budget. Even all the substitute coverage costs, like they're going to be, that will be actually saving us money because we're not hiring the position until we hire the position. So this is not, at this point, this is not costing us any more money other than the raising the rate of the addendums. But even that with the contracts, we shouldn't take a hit based on these positions that we don't have filled. Does that make sense? Did you have anything you wanted to add, Rob, about this?
Yeah, so we had detailed conversations in our last finance committee meeting with Deji was there. Financially, this isn't a burden because we have so many openings. But on the other hand, we need to get support staff in there so Kristen and team aren't actually teaching classes. So we went through this, and they will be providing us updates of the missing headcount to adding teachers all along the way till we make it back to what I say above water. But they will be keeping us up to date on that, and obviously the headcount, and because if we go above the headcount, we're going to have another meeting to approve that. But I'm not worried about that. The financials are in perfectly good shape. We're so underspent right now because of all the openings. So I told them, fill as many as you can to get us as close to above water as we can be.
Does anybody else have any questions about this or suggestions? I'm open to them as a board members. If you think of anything, I mean, I don't know if we've been calling universities for student teachers, like college students. We're trying to figure out what to do. So if you have any suggestions or any opportunities, just let us know. All right, next slide. All right, so this is a community update. There was a grant that went out, and it was the Chester County's public schools get $10 million COVID grant. And this grant was really for all the things that we have to do in our effort to going back to school and keeping people safe. So the Chester County intermediate unit did get in touch with me and told me that they were very excited that they wrote this grant and that we could get up to, with the calculations, up to maybe about $250,000. And of course, any relief for us right now is great because it is a cost for us to go back to school. You see the subs and the raising of the rates and ventilation and all of these things that we're trying to do to make this work. So I was then told by the Chester County CCIU that we did not get the grant and the grant didn't come through. So that was unfortunate. However, on social media, I saw that they did get the grant and it went to the surrounding school districts instead of us. And I said what was confusing is that the article said public schools and we are a public school. So why they would include us and then not include us was very confusing. So I did call the Chester County commissioners and wrote them an email. I'm in contact with the IU. I have a meeting with John Lawrence tomorrow. I mean, this is upsetting to me as the head of school, along with me as a mother. My children are just as important as everybody else's children. And if there's money that they're giving to public schools, we should be a part of it, especially when it comes to the health and safety of kids. So I do think that parents need to get involved in this and make sure that their voices are heard. We are going to send out a voter's voice to parents to send to the Chester County commissioners along with the intermediate unit so that they understand that this is not acceptable. But this is happening. It happens a lot, unfortunately. And I think it's important that we advocate for ourselves and for our kids. So along with that, PDE is recognizing that we're not, as charter schools, we're not getting enough support. So I'll use the example, you just saw I'm sure some of you watched the Avon Grove School District's meeting. And in the meeting, they say things like, when we had our superintendent's meeting, we met with Jean from the Chester County Health Department, and we had a representative from CHOP come to our meeting. Unfortunately, I don't have meetings like that, and nobody supports us that way. And so the way I get my information is like everybody else at 4 o'clock through the internet. If we have a COVID problem, we obviously call the Chester County Health Department, but it's my initiating that, or I have to talk to Dr. Marchese. So we are not treated the same as the districts when it comes to giving us information. And so the state is recognizing that, but what they're saying is, this is too much for us, so we're gonna break you into different intermediate units. And Avon Grove Charter School, you're gonna go to Allegheny. You're gonna go to the Allegheny Intermediate Unit. And hey, Collegium, you're gonna go to Monco and their intermediate unit, and all the cyber schools are gonna go to Chester County. And I said, that sounds ridiculous. Because if I said to Chris Marchese, hey, Westchester's gonna go to Monco and you're gonna go to Allegheny, and that's how you're gonna get your support, that thank you, but no thank you. Like, I'm very confused why this is where we are as a state or as a county. So obviously I'm advocating for the school, but I'm gonna need your help to advocate as well, because it's not fair, it's not okay, and it's very upsetting as usual. And I think we're holding our own, and I'm glad that we have a relationship with Avon Grove, who I can call at any time and ask, and that has helped. But it's unfortunate that this is the position they've put us in. So I do have a meeting with George from the CCIU. He's having a CEO meeting. He's agreed to have one. It's scheduled for October 29th, and we'll be talking about all of this. I have a meeting with John Lawrence this week. So there's a lot going on that way, and I'll be sending emails to you. So any way you can get people involved or put it out on your social media or however you get your groups involved, that would be very much appreciated. Is there any questions about that so far? Okay. Brian, do you want to add anything?
Nope.
Okay. All right. The PDE did make a donation of multiple masks that the IU did bring over. So we have about 2,000 masks that we've given bus drivers. There were some kids that tried to get on the bus without a mask. So we made sure that they all have masks. We have enough masks here if they're not wearing appropriate masks to make sure that everybody's masked up. So that was a nice donation. Coatesville School District is almost paid up from last year. However, they haven't paid much for this year. So we, Donna can give us more about figures. I think you said it's like 1 million that they owe us from this year.
With the billing that just went out this week, they'll be at 2.2 million in receivables. So we did receive 500,000 for this fiscal year, and we'll be receiving 2.2 million for last fiscal year, with leaving a balance of about 400,000. So we continue to work with Stacy, who has reached out to the PDE, and will update the board as more information becomes available. But we are very happy that we are receiving the 2.2 million, and Rob can give you further details in his treasurer's report.
And just for the record, they are the ones who received the $2.4 million from that grant in money. So just saying. And then the voters' voice, obviously, that will be going out and we'll get everybody involved. As far as athletics, so we are following the health and safety practices. There has been a little hiccups where we had to have some reminders about making sure masks are on buses and making sure that spectators are wearing masks. I know every state is different. They did have a couple games in Maryland that were questionable. With the board support, I am asking that if this gets out of hand and people can't follow the rules, that I shut it down if there's any COVID cases related to them not following the rules. Because I did say sports cannot be the reason that we stop school and have outbreaks. So they are on very strict notice about the way this is going. So if there's any problems with that, this is your opportunity as a board to tell me what direction you want me to go in. But I feel pretty strongly about making sure that sports does not break up the disruption of school and have COVID cases because of following what we set out to do here.
Kristen, this is Rob. What you said you're having issues with our teams or other teams with our teams? Because if it's other teams, we can't control it. But if it's our teams, our kids are not, wearing their masks on the bus or whatever. I just want to get a little more detail around that part.
Yeah. So one night I came after a soccer game and I watched the kids get off the bus without the masks and said, what's happening here? So I addressed that. When I heard about the Maryland game, I just heard that for the volleyball Maryland game, there was a lot of people there and not everybody had masks on. So they said that for the most part, our spectators did that were there in the group, but I explained the school nurses there. So I just explained to them that if you're a spectator and you're in an auditorium, they all should be wearing masks or 6 feet away, because if they contract COVID there because they're not following the rules and bring it back to their kids, that brings it to us. It's going to be the reason. So I just reiterated that, not sure what people's policies are in Maryland, but if our kids are there, that our rules are our rules, no matter where they are, that they have to follow the rules about wearing the masks and making sure they're keeping the 6 feet, which luckily I do have that school nurse with me with them because she's helping reinforce that. Now, track and field is a little different, but I did have somebody say they were worried about a COVID symptoms for a track student. However, they were negative, so that's good. And they were wearing their masks and they were 6 feet apart when they were running. So that was good. But then there was question about carpooling. So in that car, before that kid got the test, there was 3 other kids in the car. So if you're carpooling, they should be wearing their masks, right? Like, you don't know who's in your car, where they've been, and how that then spreads. So those are 3 examples that I can give you. None of these examples led to positive cases, but I still think it's important to take the opportunity, because they weren't positive cases, to remind them how serious it is and what will happen if they don't follow the rules.
Yeah,
Kristen, have we reached out to the parents of those student athletes just to make sure that we're having those conversations? I think it goes beyond, yes, there are rules in the school rules, but having often conversations with the parents of those student athletes.
Agreed. And I think, like, as far as even that conversation with the mom, with the track, like that was a conversation over the weekend. So they are reaching out to us, which is important too. So they feel like they need to communicate, which I was happy to see. It wasn't like they were trying to hide that. So I think it is all about the communication and making sure that people understand what they could lose if they don't follow the guidelines.
And I think that's what we're seeing in the local public school, the other school districts. Even if they haven't returned to school, there's been the incidences with cheerleading, with football, where they've had to, make some pretty significant decisions. But that's what we're hearing from, I know, at least in the school district I reside in. And I know it was even prior to, any kids considering going back to school. So I think, again, that's where we're hearing that athletics, where it intersects, and there was such a push in Chester County for the kids to return to sports even before school. So I think it's definitely something we need to keep monitoring and, just making sure that everyone's aware of where we stand on that.
Yeah. And the limited spectators, obviously you see in this note that went home, introduction about sports, that there was a 250 spectator rule. Obviously, we don't have any spectators here. They're actually all away games because of the work we're doing in the field. Along with our volleyball games, we have no spectators. So that, and all those things are being live streamed. So that does help our restraining, like as far as how many people are on our school property and what they're doing here. But that doesn't mean that in Maryland, they're not having 250 people there. So it's just important for you to see that. The soccer team did win again, so they're back on their winning streak, which is awesome. And I know that track and volleyball are right behind them doing really well. So I'm excited for the kids. I know that they're loving it, and hopefully we can keep it going. So there's a lot of ways we're communicating this year. The Bishop Corona Diaries were something that people talked to me a lot about, just needing that connection when everybody was home. So now that we're back to school, I can tell you that I don't get to know teachers necessarily on an intimate level unless I'm doing something with them or have a relationship with them. And so I really wanted to take this opportunity to get to know the teachers and connect them to the communities, especially during this time. So there was a podcast that went out last week with Mr. Ham. And then today, another Teachers Lounge video. So we're alternating with Matt Arders, at least I am. So Matt Arders does a podcast, then I do a video, then he does a podcast and a video. So we did the Ham family back to back as our first one. He did Mr. Ham, I did Mrs. Ham. If you haven't watched the video, it's really cute. I obviously spent the day with her to do hybrid, so it was easy for me to interview her since I was already in there, but I am looking forward to cycling through and introducing the community to more teachers, and not just about them being teachers, but what they like to do personally, what brought them to the school. So you're really finding out intimately who they are and why they're here. So check that out if you haven't already. There is the Avon Grove Charter School Spotlight that we're putting out every month, which is the newsletter. There's a board section of that newsletter. So if there's anything you ever want to write in there, you're more than happy to. You can email to Maureen Tyree and she would put that information in there. I usually just recap the board meetings, but anytime you can put something in there. Social media obviously is still a big push for us, making sure that we're connecting with families there. The Friday COVID updates, they have been successful. The people love the color charts and what that means. So that is something that we're going to keep up every Friday. The virtual parent speaker series, that's the best lesson we've learned through some of this. Parents did not necessarily make it to workshops. Sometimes the attendance was 6 or 5 or 4. Now we have 20, 30, 50, 60, 100, especially if we're talking about coming back to school and, talking about the process. So they have been very successful and we're going to keep them up monthly. The hybrid video that we sent before school started or right as school started, they got 21 shares and 2.8K views in the first 5 days. So that was really successful. And I think people got a good feel of what a classroom would look like. And then we're still trying to do fundraising, even though it's hard to do with everything that's going on. So the Amazon Smiles came out. along with the Giving Tuesday that we started in November and put through December. So we're asking for companies to match. We're asking for people to give. If there's any way that the board can get involved in some of that Giving Tuesday, or your company does something, or your friend's company does something, we really want to hear from you, because this is going to be a hardship based on the amount of money we usually bring in fundraising and not being able to have big functions. So I'm asking for some support there. I know traditions are really important to the families at Avon Grove Charter School. So we did have, we still had grandparents activities for Grandparents' Day, even though they didn't come in and eat lunch with their children. We are doing Red Ribbon Week, and we're even trying a car parade for our harvest parade. So instead of trunk or treat, or instead of the parade that the Campbellsville kids do, a car parade that they can come and decorate their car. So they really are trying to do things that helps kids still have some consistency with the things they were looking forward to. Seniors get something every week. We're just really trying to help seniors get through their senior year, and we've been doing a lot of fun things with them. So obviously practicing social distancing and making sure that we have all our health and safety guidelines. I don't know if you've been checking out the Staff Achievement Awards. So when a staff member gets their master's, or they are special certification, they've been advertising that on our social media site, along with alumni news. There was one of our students, Kristen, who goes to Georgia Tech, and she's making computers for underprivileged kids. It's amazing. So there's a lot of cool things that our kids are doing. Active PTO this year that are meeting with my principals regularly, really. So that's exciting. And then Brian's going to go over our niche ratings. So for the 2021 ranking. So there's just a lot of ways we're trying to communicate and keep our community engaged. Any ways that you can support, be great. If you have anything to add, does anybody have anything to add to that, or questions?
For the Giving Tuesday, how can we help?
Sorry. I mean, it's about companies that can match people's donations. So if you know ways that, I know sometimes, like if you work for a certain bank, they'll match things. If you belong to a certain community outreach, Giving Tuesday is all about giving back to your community. So there's usually some of those that are looking, even DuPont, like they're looking for certain places. So anybody that has a connection that's really what we're looking for, the connection. Anybody else? Okay, Brian.
Do you want me to do those rankings now, or do you want to start the board meeting with those?
Oh yeah, I forgot. That's what we were gonna do. Okay.
Yep.
So it's 6:50. We're gonna go into an executive session, and then we'll come back at 7:30.
I think Dwayne's got to adjourn the meeting.
Okay, go ahead, Dwayne.
Yeah, so we're going to adjourn. We are going to go into an executive, my thunder was stolen. We're going to go into an executive session. So do I have an emotion to adjourn the meeting?
Rob
Dwayne will make the
motions.
motion.
I think I heard two people. Do I have a second? All right, so Stacy first and Brian second. So we are adjourned. We'll see everyone at the board meeting at, is it 7:30?
Is there a
Thank you.
separate link for executive session?